The thing about me is I am very different from cannabis smoking paraphernalia, even though if you were really talented, as I am, cursed to be, sadly, just, you know, why, God, why? Just had to be you, I'm afraid. Okay, it's me. So I am him. The thing about being me, though, is obviously in some context, if you're American like Maui, maybe I'm your favourite bong. If you know the reference, you know the reference. But actually, my favourite bong would be the freeze pipe. And unlike the freeze pipe, that's how different the freeze pipe is to this show, because this show isn't about smoking cannabis. That's what we do for fun later, reviewing all the millions made from this show, maybe, which is you wouldn't want this show if it didn't come with hot takes, if it didn't have those face-biting hot takes that burn you up and you get, oh, why is he going with that? Oh, he's so irritating how biased he is. Also, you wouldn't want me. Like, so in that sense, that's the part I don't like about smoking cannabis. All really hot smoke, like, oh, you know, that moment when you breathe in and you're getting high, but then it's like, oh, it's too harsh, it's too much. You wouldn't want that. But the antidote to that with the freeze pipe is, of course, the food-safe glycerin chamber that you take out and you put in the freezer section for an hour, and then it cools the smoke by 200 degrees. You wouldn't want me to just cool off for an hour before coming on with all my hot takes. It would ruin the show. That wouldn't be the sort of vibe that we're going for. So basically, all I'm saying is, enjoy this show for what it is, and then if you smoke cannabis, you don't have to put up with annoying hot takes. You can actually just get a freeze pipe, 10% off with the code LFN at thefreezepipe.com. Enjoy their technology, which will actually means you get all the high and all the THC and all that good stuff, but you don't have to have all the annoying part. Wouldn't that be great, eh? Freezepipe.com, 10% off, code LFN. Right, let's start out, gentlemen. And where I want to start out here is, because I'm trying to like make it so that in the future we do get that sort of pacing where you start with the milder ones, you know, you start with the not that crazy ones, then you work it. So what's interesting is I'm actually going to start with one which in a meta context could be spicy. Like, I don't even know. Here's what people also don't know. One of the reasons my shows are fire and other people's shows are just the most tepid, just lukewarm water. Oh, I guess it's all right. It's because they do stupid stuff, like sit in a Discord call for an hour before the show and just drill all the topics and just ruin all the takes and like all the like. There's no freshness to it. They've even wasted takes they'll forget to say later, because a habitual problem with this job is if you can't remember if it was on camera or off, you're going to think you've said that take already and you're not going to like reiterate it properly. So I haven't actually told, I never do, kassad any of my takes. So my first take actually could be a little bit edgy on kassad, but we'll see where it goes. Because on the one hand, it bigs him up, but who knows? It might go into some territory that's a bit awkward. We've never discussed this part of our relationship. So it goes like this, kassad. It's going to start great. You're going to totally agree with the initial line. The line goes, this is the take. Fans should worship the ground kassad walks on and treat everything he says, not even just as an opinion, but as fact that all history is based off. You're going to be like, what? What the fuck? In some ways, that's one of the worst takes you've ever done on this show. No, let me explain why, though. Because kassad is from Serbia, and kassad is not only a provable expert about Counter-Strike, he even coached a team to the semis of the World Championship. So with that whole resume, Serbian, proven experience in Counter-Strike, opinions about... Logically, every opinion you say should just be fact. Because that's what they do to a different guy from Serbia that doesn't have that background. Like, one thing I've never understood, kassad, is they don't just say coldzera was voted #1 player in the world twice by him. They just say coldzera was the best player of 2 years. Like, what? Do people not know how crazy the difference between those two statements is? Like, one of them is a statement of, like, this group voted the person. The other one's as though, like, he had the fucking reality stone from, like, Avengers. Like, yeah, now coldzera is the greatest player. Like, what are you doing? Like, so... People think I'm joking when I say this. You are aware those lists and that formula, like, it's not totally one guy. There was other people worked on it over the years. It does essentially come from just one guy's mind. So what I've never understood is the same fans that hate bias, they hate people having opinions, they hate people like, that's just your take, bro. Like, no, you guys have defined your whole reality from one guy's take. And what's mad is, he's not even someone on camera like this who's answering all the questions. This guy who gets, he's just behind the scenes, unless you saw his Twitter at the time. He's just Bing chilling. You have no idea why he thought that. You have no idea, by the way, in the HLTV rating, why he rates surviving this much. You have no idea why ADR does or doesn't mean that. By the way, random little aside, how the fuck did Huxley have that game recently where he went 0-0 and he had a 0.98 rating on HLTV? Is everyone else just cool with that? Your rating says you are almost a perfectly average game where you did nothing in the game. You did nothing. Everyone else just goes, doesn't look like anything to me, Thorin. Back to NPC land. La, la, la. Like, so anyway, there you go. It started as like a super hot take. It wasn't really. Essentially, in the end, it was just an excuse for me to bitch about the fact that you all just worship that Serbian guy, not kassad. And the reason why I said it could be slightly spicy is because what people don't know, kassad, is this. This is how legit I am, but also kassad and Yankwa. You know, me, kassad and Yanko have never had a discussion about that whole thing about why I have this rivalry with that Serbia. Because what they don't know is I'm legit. Like, I'll just say what I think. I'm not doing it just to fuck with someone. And a lot of that was just stupid Twitter shit anyway. But I want to get Kassad's take on this. What do you think of that? Obviously, it's like a tongue-in-cheek take. I don't really believe people should treat whatever you say as fact and all. But you get the point. Like, they actually do just let the game will restart from HLTV. They act like he is like the architect of the fucking Matrix, and like, cause he says like a player's as good or that the rating works. They just accept it as fact, like, and then even worse, they build it off and they never understand it. At the end of the day, it's like an informed expert opinion. It's not actually reality, you know, guys. It's just a framework how to look at the game.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, he has been offline for a while. More than a long time. He hasn't been posting or tweeting or anything. I don't know what's going on. I used to talk to him like outside of the social media and stuff, and we had a really good relationship. But he just gone missing ever since HLTV got sold to the.
Oh, is that one right?
Yeah,
the betting collective or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but the thing is, like, he personally did a very good job when it comes to like stats and all these things, right? Obviously, he doesn't have the in-game knowledge or the expertise and all these things, like, to actually, his opinion to be super relevant outside of the statistics that he provided, right? I have a problem with stats, in general. I think that they are, it's like Western politics. Like, I don't want to go in there, but the thing is, like, they are technically right, but widely misleading.
Yes.
And they're painting the completely different picture of whatever is going on. It's just completely.
You know the slogan, because I've seen Yanko post it half a dozen times. He loves it as well. You know that quote I always give that Yanko loves, where it says that stats are like a bikini. Yeah. Like what they conceal, what they reveal is enticing, I think was the way you say it. But what they conceal is essential. So essentially, it's what the stat doesn't contain. That's what you really want to ask, isn't it? It's like, well, how did the stat come about? What framing is it? You're right. Most people do ignore that.
It's just they're technically right. Yeah, when you say that the rating,
oh, it's a fact.
The kill death ratio, whatever impact, they're technically right, but they're wildly misleading. Considering, like, you have so many things in game there, people are just not seeing. They're just not seeing it because they're focused on, oh, he had so many frags, he has this flick and he clutched that, but they don't see the impact of other players. They don't see why that happened, how that happened, who is responsible. You took an example of Huxley. I also got, he did nothing. He just got carried. Like, it's not, he just got carried by the superstar players that he had in his team. That's Nico, that's Monesi, that's Hunter, that's actually playing super good Counter-Strike, and JKS, who was in an average level. He wasn't even that good in the past, however, but they still managed to win on the back of the superstars. I'm not even going to say just Nico, but it's the whole team, like, especially Monesi as well. So it's just overall statistics. I'm not big fan of them. I'm not big fan of them because they are not showing the picture. Yes, they can give you proper information when you analyze the game, when you look at like some other things, like, for example, how many flash assists you got, what's your utility damage, all these things. But the frags itself, I don't care. Like, they are not showing the full picture of who threw the flash for you, who set up the rotation for you, who was there to bait for you and dies for you so you can get a double kill. Like, there is so many things that people are not seeing. And yeah, I do agree with that take. And obviously there was never, yeah, we are good friends with Peter. Yeah, we are good friends with you as well. You guys had a clash on Twitter for what, 5 years?
It was a few years.
Yeah, it lasted, but it's always like based on, he has his angle, you have your angle, right? You are more in tune with CS when it comes to like following everything that's going on. He was more a stats guy.
Yeah,
who was
exactly.
following like, and that was the clash. And it was
Yes.
fun to watch.
If people don't know, by the way, on that battle, Lurpus is on, even though Lurpus is a mate of mine a lot longer, Lurpus is on the game will restart side more than I am, because Lurpus is also a numbers guy, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
you see that it's like people who follow that and people who are actually, you know, in more or like a bigger picture type of situation, right? So overall, they do taking your side slightly when it comes to simply because the whole thing behind the numbers, right? It's not just not just the numbers. You cannot look at it that way. This is not math. This is not accounting. It's just skill. It's just a team game. It's a lot more than frags and statistics.
By the way, the real divide between, not just me in the game, well, he's just a famous example of it, but people who have this opposite way of thinking is exactly that, Kassad. It's that essentially my problem with the numbers is this. I've looked into them. It just doesn't go anywhere. It goes down a direction, but then you have to keep adding the context anyway. So at that point in time, like, you're just using the eye test anyway to justify the stat. I can't handle that. I actually do get the sense, this is why me and Lopez has always clashed on this. He almost seems to think if you used the right mathematical model, it would just tell you all the answers and you wouldn't need to watch the game anymore. Like, you would just know who the better one was and who outperformed who. Like, I don't think the stat can ever give you the answer in that sense, you know. Like, I don't think it is like, essentially the stat isn't actually like the code of the matrix of life and you've hacked into it. It is itself, I mean, Maui will get this, it is itself an abstraction that you have arbitrarily overlaid onto a system, which, by the way, it's more mathematically based, but that's all I'm doing anyway. I'm putting my own principles as a model over the top of the game. So that's why I've always thought, like, they have their place, but people do go way too far. A lot of people just worship stats in the modern day, mate. It's a religion.
Exactly. Yeah. Before Maui goes in, it's like I said, it's that they're like technically correct. You can see, like, yeah, he had those numbers, he had those ratings, but they're widely misleading when it comes to the
Dude, the best example is this. It's this last tournament. There was just one game as 8, right? If you watch this tournament, look, ZywOo is the MVP. I give him the MVP. Also, if you look at the number, that would be one of the greatest MVPs ever. But if you actually watch, because it's ZywOo and Simple have this crazy thing to them where the numbers don't even make sense for them. Like, they can have an average game and the numbers out the universe. You're like, what? But then that isn't even close to the best ZywOo performance. Like, if I was a ZywOo fan, I wouldn't be holding that one up. That was just like an all right one. That was like a normal day in the office for him, mate. If anything, he had a couple of off games, you know.
And one small thing is, like, people, let's take Lorpis, right? As it is. You and him are good pals, whatever, like, you're just fine. And people think that the two people clash opinions about something, they immediately, you know, start hating each other. Sure. It's not like that. It's just difference of opinion.
Oh, by the way, Maui, don't worry.
Whatever.
I'll tease everyone. One day in the future, we will have, like, guest appearances on our shows. And I will definitely bring Lurpus on the basketball show. Because if people don't know, people do that dumb thing where they, like, if they know you like each other, they just say like that, like, oh, you just agree on everything. Even though the joke is like, who the fuck have I ever just agreed with everyone on? Like, I can't even agree with my friends, mate. But if you don't know, he is a massive LeBron fan. And so, like, all I'm telling you is, if I ever bring him on that basketball show, like, I've purposely refused to have that argument with him because I know it'll almost, like, ruin our friendship. But, like, I'll have it on that show, mate. It'd be amazing because he just does the same thing. He has, like, all the stats reasons as to why he's the best or whatever, you know. Go on about it. What's your side?
Couple things with this. I first want to pick on the Lurpus angle that he thinks that you could basically have a stat that's just going to tell you everything. But the reality of just, like, creating a statistic, especially an advanced statistic, is that they're made using regressions that try to correlate individual statistics and something like winningness to try to give you a flat number like rating, which is going to say that this is indicative of winning the game, that you're finding all these little things like first kills, you know, like getting multi-frags, clutch kills, or whatever, all these, like, little numbers that they try to use. So the thing is that's obviously flawed about thinking that can tell you everything is that as the meta of the game changes, you can't have a stat that uses past data in order to create itself. True. Like, it needs to be a stat from the future in order to actually be one-to-one with winningness, because the game is so constantly in shift. You can't, it's actually just impossible. You can't do that unless you have a time machine. The other thing that just to get to your, like, original point with, like, the HLTV stuff, it's just kind of a little bit of a digression here, but it's just that I do think it's so ridiculous that HLTV rating is taken as gospel as players' contributions because it actually, in a fun way, it makes my job as a hot take merchant so easy because it's so easy to tell a fan or to tell anybody that that player with a 1.10 rating didn't do anything or that he was overrated. It's so easy to say that because people are just going to look at that number and think that if it's a 1.10 rating, they don't have the critical analysis necessary to say, was that an impactful 1.10 or was that one where they got kills at the end of the round and didn't end up accomplishing anything? And so it's easy for me as someone who's watching the game to say, those kills didn't matter. Like that, those numbers are very much just inflated or they're just empty calorie stats. Another thing is that it's also ridiculous that what's crazy is that suddenly this same fan base, when you say that a non-IGL player that has a 0.8 rating is doing badly, everybody's gonna be like, no, you don't get it. You don't get his job. You don't understand what he's doing. And it's like, how am I, like, it's so easy to play around these stats. So I will say, thank you to Peter for creating a stat that's so easy to manipulate stories around.
All right, I'll give you the example for the last one, because obviously it's better if you can give a kit. An example of the player Maui's talking about in the last one will be like Drop from Furia. Like, obviously his stats were always terrible. It was like red, it was like 0.8 and 5 or whatever. But like, you could absolutely have looked at the game and seen that guy was doing more than that. But I agree with you, Maui. If they're going to worship stats, then you can't do that. You actually are not allowed to do that. If you're telling me the 1.2 guy is always a god, then Drop is a bomb by that logic. In fact, he's actually below par.
I mean, I'm mostly thinking of the recent one I came up with on another show that was like Borup's doing very badly for Astralis.
Right.
Like he looks awful. He looks so bad. And people are like, you don't get his role. It's like, no, I do. He's definitely just dying for no reason a lot of the time. Like, yeah.
Come on, who was it?
Inters was another,
Sure,
example.
yes.
I mean, he got cut because he had bad numbers. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, go, Maui.
Okay, yeah. My take here is, and I don't think this is even that hot, but I've just seen the articles lately about what C said, where he says, I'll use CS2 as a motivation and I feel like it'll help me a lot. And then Flamey says, I want to come back and I think I still have something to show. It's like, the hot take here is just that these players coming back for CS2, like, this isn't going to reinvigorate them. This isn't going to, like, somehow breathe life back into their careers. They're going to stay in the same position that they're in right now. The game will definitely shake things up a little bit at the very top end. But if you're, like, kind of just meandering in like tier 2.5, tier 3 CS right now, like you're not suddenly just going to become a god again. Like that's I don't even, again, it's not even like the hottest of takes, but I just see that it seems like a couple older veteran players are saying like, this is going to be it. I'm going to find myself again. It's like, no, that's just not happening.
So basically Maui's saying that Seized and Flame are delusional.
Essentially, yeah.
That's it. The thing is, like, I do agree with that statement, simply because, like, if they were about to come back, they would have done so in the past. How many years they were exactly in tier 3, whatever, right? So thinking coming into the CS2, it's gonna be they're gonna be even in the worse spot than they were there right now, simply because there is gonna be a new wave of young talented players, kids, 16, 17-year-olds that are gonna be charging into this game, looking for their spot under the sun, and that's aside from the normal default wave that's coming in anyway. So you have to battle these two, surges of players coming into the new game, and you want to come back into this. Who's going to pick you? Who's going to put their neck and says, like, listen, I want to get Seized, Flame, or whoever of those players into my team in the brand new game instead of a super sharp young kid that's not going to demand any salary, little to nothing, and he's going to be playing all day, watching demos. He's going to be watching YouTube clips. He's going to be working all day on himself, and he's super sharp, 10, 15 years of career in front of him, and who's going to pick Seized or Flamey over those guys? No one. I'm telling you, no one. The only way they get back on the top is like by some sort of like magical like things that are gonna be circumstances that's gonna be like all in the right place at the right time, so they end up in a team that's gonna maybe ascend to some sort of a competition level, maybe, but that is a very big a very big miracle that needs to happen for I'm not just you gave example of Seized and Flamey, so I'm just following it up. There's many more players like that that are gonna be trying to get back into some sort of glory days, but ain't gonna happen. No.
I definitely agree with this take, because you'll notice the part that I think is so disingenuous is that they have to put CS2. If they just said something, Maui, like, you know, I'm motivated to come back to CS now, okay, that's not a terrible statement. But the reason they're putting CS2 is so that, one, it doesn't have to be tomorrow. They don't have to actually be good now, right now. What they're saying is basically, like, you know, in a little while from now, when like everything's going to be really drastic and changed, like, don't forget about me. I used to be good. And that's all they're doing. It's really bad marketing. Because essentially the best example of this is Forrest, because like Forrest was a better player than those guys, right? When Forrest tells you like, I want to be pro again in CS2, he didn't finish the sentence, guys. That's why you're all like, I don't get it. Why is he not on a team? He means he wants to be on a top 15 team again, guys. He wants someone to come now and go, it doesn't matter that you're, well, I don't know, we'll do 34, 35 or something. It doesn't matter that you're this old. You've got a whole family. You've essentially moved past that phase of your life and your career because you used to be legendary. Like Kassad says, that's what you got to think from the GM side. What GM's going, I'm going to put my whole career on this guy. Like, I get why someone might gamble and buy a Monacy and go, look, if it doesn't work out, fire me. But if it works out, I'm willing to gamble. This guy will become one of the best players. Nobody's doing that with an old legendary player because there's nothing left. Like, best case scenario, they get sort of good again. They're never going to be like a top 10 player in the world. So no GM's doing that. So the problem I have is this. If Forrest wants a gig, I can get him one tomorrow. Which number do you want in Eyeballers? Oh, you wouldn't want to play for Eyeballers. Then you don't get to play Pro CS. There we go. Do you like them apples? Because that's the state of the game we're playing right now. Eyeballers isn't even that far down the rankings, by the way. I'm actually being generous saying that. Like, if you go to Eyeballers tomorrow and you can't perform and show us you're a top X player in the world, then you shouldn't be in Pro CS. Like, this isn't a charity. It's not WWE. You don't get to come back when you're 70 like Ric Flair, and because you used to be legendary, well, like, pretend you can still fight and be like, yeah, oh, cool, Ric Flair's back. Like, this is a sport. Like, even if there's a guy out there with no rep and nobody, and he's good at the game now, he gets to play instead of you, Forrest. That's just the way the game works. And you know why that's fair? Because that's why you got to play CS. Once upon a time, there was some mega legendary Swedish players who, if we're going with Thorin's history, I'd be getting them in all these teams. But instead along came a young guy that no one knew with mad aim called Forrest, and he got to have their spot because he actually, in the game, took that spot. There's nothing. Nobody gives you any of these things. These guys do that interview. Like, someone's supposed to reach out like, hey, do you want a spot? No. Prove you're actually good enough. Because the other problem I have is this. I think the reason they're doing it is because of the name change is what's fucking everyone up. People think CS2 is going to be such a drastically different game that, like with a lot of esports games, it'll sort of reset the hierarchy, but really crazy. So people know the difference between 1.6 and CSGO was someone like Trace, the Danish player, went from being like a lock top 4 or 5 player every time he ever played to like, he might have just been like the 35th best player when CSGO came out. If that kind of crazy shift happens, then yeah, you've got sort of an opportunity where you could again prove yourself really good. Even then though, think about who makes it. The guy who replaces Trace in this analogy isn't another legendary player who think, no, it's someone who actually, if anything, that shift, that opportunity benefits the guy who was sort of waiting for a moment like that. So if people know, people like Hiko and Sean Gares, they were just whatever at the end of 1.6. They were just guys on, like, you know, like, let's say like the 5th best NA team, and they weren't like huge names everyone was looking at. But then when the opportunity came, where sort of like the hierarchy gets mixed up a bit, and a bunch of players, by the way, retire and you clear out, then they weren't given it, but they then proved that they could be the best in their scenario. But notice they're like younger people waiting for their shot. It isn't like when CSGO came out, some fucking like K-Sharp came back and was like, I'm back, bitches. What up? No, that didn't happen. In fact, that has never happened ever in the history of Counter-Strike, by the way. Name me one great player, I'm talking about a great player, who, unless it was something, I don't know, in fact, I don't think it's even happened, even injury they've never come back from. Whoever went away for a year or two, then came back and was really good. It's never happened, ever. Because the game is just too much. You're not going to come back like that. There's a reason you retired, and there's a reason you won't be coming back.
You guys are all like basketball. Take a look at Derrick Rose. Like, he was the MVP.
Sure.
He got injured. And he never managed to come back. And that was like 1 year, and he was super young. He never got to be back on his level, right? And he was the fucking MVP that season in Chicago, right? Yeah. I watched the game live when he got injured against Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things. But to come back to the Maui's point, it's like, first of all, it's not just CS. It's not just the sport. It's business. It's common sense in business that you need to make these smart decisions. Why would I pay $8, $9, $10,000 a month to Forrest because he has a huge following when he's gonna deliver nothing in terms of value in game? When I can like spend a lot more money on a young guy and just watch him develop and like be super healthy towards him so he can be loyal and stay and then, you know, learn more money and my team can be more successful. Or somebody, like you said, take a gamble like they did on Mauisnake and stuff like that. So it's first of all, it's business. The other thing is, like you said, like no good GM. Like, is there any good GMs in fucking CS?
Relative to the scene, obviously.
It's just, you know, is there any? So maybe he haven't even ends up getting.
By the way, that's even an angle that I also noticed they never bother mentioning. They never mention that like salaries exist. They talk that you just get a spot on a team. By the way, there's another thing. If you want to come back and you're willing to play for 2K when everyone else plays for 10K, maybe I can get you a spot. You wouldn't do that. You're, when they also say I want to play again, they mean they want the 10K a month again, kassad. In fact, I'll just say this and I'll hurt some people's feelings. I think some of these people, the only reason they want to come back is they want the 10, 15K a month again.
Absolutely.
It ain't about trying to be the best anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the examples of the active players right now is Crims.
Okay.
Like, he's a legendary Hall of Fame player. He was absolutely, you know, a beast when it comes to like fragging and like in the age of Fnatic and like after that. And right now he's not delivering all that much. He's a semi-support role right now, struggling to get his numbers, but he's still somehow there. Nobody would give him a chance, and he was a mega player.
Oh, for sure.
He was a better player than Forrest in CSGO by far. And is he gonna get a chance? I don't think so. So why would Forrest or Flamey or C's or whoever, right? There's absolutely no logical reasoning unless you are a dumb GM or somebody who wants to waste money. But we have those people, so you know.
Exactly. Listen, the real problem is this. You can all have gigs. You just need a time machine and then to send the email I'm going to tell you to write to evil geniuses in 2021. But enough about that. So. Right, here we go then. Moving up the Schofield level. Here's my next one. It's a very short one.
Wait.
Oh, go on.
He didn't go yet.
I think it's my turn.
Oh, you didn't do yours, right? Fair enough.
Yeah. It was like we got into it. I'm gonna do a very. I don't know if it's mild or not, but people are gonna get mad. I don't care. Spinx is going to be Vitality's best player in 2024.
Woo! First of all, I'm in for it. And I love it. So let's go. Come on. Hit me with it. Come on.
Yes, right now that's not the case, but it's getting very close. And we get to that point of statistics, right? If you go through the matches, you will see ZywOo plus 22, plus 21, plus 17, 20, whatever. Statistically speaking, ZywOo is their best player, you know, by far. And
sure.
But like we said, they are a little bit misleading. But when I say a little bit, I mean a lot. So I was watching Spinx a lot, you know, during this last, 6 months. And the guy is absolutely insane how good he is. He's providing so much impact for the team outside of the actual, you know, winning battles on the server. The things that he does are absolutely amazing. I think he's found his spot right now. You know, when he joined, the first 6 months were a little bit iffy. If you remember, it was like, you know, he didn't get the same spots like in ENCE, and he's not delivering. But he got you. I don't know if it's Zonic's, you know, kind of idea that he kind of implemented and kind of, you know, made him more effective. But whatever it is, he's playing really good right now. And I think in about 6 months from now, because what is it, August right now, end of August, in about 6 months when the CS2 comes out, he's going to be more impactful overall, and he's going to be the best player of Vitality. Yeah, you want it spicy? There you go.
I guess okay. So I'll.
There's no way Maui agrees. So come on, hit me. Come on.
I'll take your side at one thing here is that I do think that in terms of like macro impact, Spinx has so much good impact for Vitality. Like when you were talking about all the things that he's doing that's helping the team, like the way that he plays CT side, especially where he'll go for like a kind of a risky push in the last 25 seconds in a round or something like that, or 30 seconds. Or actually, in fact, he has a really good internal clock for when he needs to go for a push on CT side, where one, if he gets the kill, that's great. Two, even if he dies going for some of these pushes, it's actually kind of low risk, I've noticed. Sometimes he'll go for a push and it's like, well, because he's found that guy with 25 seconds left, his team knows everything that's going to happen in the round. There's no time for the opposing team, for that matter, to rotate into some other new plan. And so even though Spinx may have died and it may seem like it's a costly death right there, his team can now adjust their defensive scheme because of the new information that he's providing them. And he does that by, oftentimes he's actually just getting the kill. He doesn't even die. But I'm just saying that that's kind of like a worst case scenario, is that it's still not even that bad. So his risk assessment is very strong. I don't think that he's actually going to be better than ZywOo next year. I do think that ZywOo will still be the best player on this team. Just the fact, one fact is that I just think that ZywOo's level of self-preservation is so strong that he'll always he somehow finds a way to not find a decent amount of opening kills, but he just always is alive for the late round situations, and he's so good at them. So, and also on top of that, the other side of this is that ZywOo just gets to op. ZywOo gets to op, and when you get to op, more resources are going to be dedicated towards your success. And so statistically speaking, he's going to just be doing better than Spinx, just because people, including Spinx on Vitality, are going to be making sure that ZywOo has a chance to find impact.
So basically, Duncan, what he said, he's agreeing with Peter from HLTV, because he mentioned stats are more important,
exactly,
when it comes to the overall value of a player. So we know which side he's on and which team he's playing for. So,
okay.
Okay.
The funny thing is, by the way, this actually will just show you that there are a lot of people who claim to be like Vitality fans who aren't at all Vitality fans. They are only and explicitly ZywOo fans. Because, mate, some of them will hear this, and that should be brilliant news. Because I'd never said ZywOo's going to get worse, by the way, or be a bad player. He actually gave you good news. He said that he's going to be a player even better than him on the team at the same time. You should be rejoicing. That's awesome. Great. We're going to be like the good. No. They would rather burn Counter-Strike to the ground than anyone except ZywOo get the MVP. I'll tell you, I know what these stands are like, mate. They're actually ridiculous. I don't even think, straight up, I'll say this, because I said this famously in League of Legends about Reckless, if you know the player. I don't even think they're fans of Counter-Strike. They are just fans of who they think they know the person ZywOo is. Like, they think they know him like a pop star, and that they know all these. I think he's very quiet and humble, and you know the way, like, you don't know, you've never met the fucking guy, you morons. What are you talking about? Like, you're talking like it's a soap opera, and that's like your best friend's new man that you've just met. Like, oh, he's so cool with the kids. Like, what are you talking about? It's fucking video games. Like, I only care about what they do in the server. So I always just say about Simple. Could be the biggest dickhead of all time. As long as he gets in the server and left clicks that up, all forgiven, bro. Just go to work. I don't care if you're a good human or not. Just do work in the server. So on this one, obviously Kassad's more arguing from the point of like, you notice he never said statistically he will be better. He said impact-wise. Like, essentially, to me, Spinx, the second he joined this team, is the X factor of this team, because obviously he was pretty consistent. By the way, just think through your mind, when was there a map Spinx went off when fucking Vitality lost? I don't know if it's ever happened, mate. It feels like every time he goes off, dude, those are the games they win like 16-5. Like, they just cruise past people. I also do think, actually, his game does have some, like, underrated elements in it. Like, mate, this guy is absurdly good at rifle duels. Like, this is where you'd have to get in some other pros playing him. But, like, I feel like this has to be one of those players where when you attack his spot and you're a T, you just get sick of going around the corner and getting two-bulleted in the head instantly and being like, I didn't even have a chance because I didn't know where he was and he's just watching the corner angle. Like, that's where certain players, by the way, it's the same with Nico when he's on CT side. There's players where, like, the joke is, sometimes they have bad stats games because the other team just doesn't fucking go to the site anymore. You get bored of it. You get bored of looking like a moron running through a flash and just getting immediately killed and go like, you know what? Let's just go and pick on the guy who plays like fucking, I don't know, Pit on A on Inferno instead of this guy. Like, why should we just run in a buzzsaw? So, like, yeah, I agree. I think he is actually absurdly good. Like, if you look at the raw eye test, I think he is easily like, I'm trying not to make this its own hot take. Put it this way, in terms of like raw mechanics, he's a top 10 player in Counter-Strike. I think he looks absurd with the eye test. It's really, really, really good. And then let's throw in as well, because no one ever remembers this. Remember, they are all playing in international teams. Like, I don't want to hear this where you're going to compare this player to, like, a player who plays in an all-one nationality team. Like, these guys are playing with totally weird, like, a Dane next to an Israeli, next to a French guy. Like, mate, there's no connection there. Like, if they can make that work, they're actually probably even better Counter-Strike players than we realise. So, no, look, I don't know if I'll agree, because if ZywOo does the things he does now, he probably still is the best player. But it's not a terrible, like, there's an interesting argument to be had there. I'll spin it back to you, kassad. Is there some things, if someone's a casual fan and they only look at the stats or they only look at the top of the scoreboard, what things should they look for with Spinx? Do you think that they'll get a little bit more insight into what he does in the game? What's drawing your eye a bit?
How basic do you want to go? That's the thing. Like that he, I think Maui said it pretty nicely. He called it internal clock. I call it game sense. He can read the round better than most of the players on the planet right now. Like, I'm not counting obviously the top 5 players like Robs, Nikos, and all these like superstar level players. But he's up there. He can read the round. You can see that. You know, when you watch a player and all you can see is the, like, whatever he does looks easy. But in fact, it's not fucking easy at all. You try to do it yourself and you fail miserably every single time because you don't have that skill. You don't have those mechanics like you mentioned. So if you look at him, you will find so many smart decisions throughout from the beginning to the end of the round. Not just by rotations, but utility as well. The fights that he is taking are always kind of in his favor. Slightly. So that gives him the edge over the other players. He's sharp as fuck as well. So that kind of gives you additional bonus. So if you look at him, he's doing all these good things for his teams, but he's like eclipsed and overshadowed by obviously the best player in the team right now, which is ZywOo, you know, the player who is going to be in a few years a contender for the GOAT. Not right now, but the thing is, like, he's their best player right now, and you don't get to see all these things that Spinx is doing. You got to see them in ENCE. Because ENCE, he was the best player in there. So he took all the spotlight right now. Now you can't do it because ZywOo is there, obviously, but he can still deliver, and he still is delivering super high impact. And, you know, that's the reason why they're number 1.
I can actually spin this into a hot take. I was going to save till later, but we'll do it now because it's actually about Spinx. When I was watching the recent run at Gamers 8 and IM Cologne of the ENCE team, the whole time I just keep thinking, bearing in mind, Nertz is like fragging out and doing really well, but you can see how inexperienced he is. Remember, he only joined the team in like February, guys. Like, he's the guy who's had a bunch of times where, like, there'll be a map in the semis or the fact where he just goes quiet, he does nothing. Dude, if they could actually right now, they wouldn't choose to, but if I could make them, if I just transport Spinx and he goes in a Nertz's spot now in ENCE, ENCE is just the best team in Counter-Strike. I'm not even joking, because Spinx already is bona fide. Sun Pius is a big game player, we've seen this. Dika only has to be like the 3rd best player. Madden is actually a very good role player. And Snappi, just the flaw his fragging brings to the game, and then he has good calling in the map. They would actually be the best team in Counter-Strike, in my opinion. The problem they have at the moment is they don't have the bona fide number 1 star. Like, Nertz just needs more time. He probably needs like another 3 months. Sun Pius, by the way, isn't going to be it. Like, that's not his style of play. His style of play is like, in a big pressure moment, he'll pull off some crazy big balls, triple kill, do a no scope. He's not trying to actually be like old device and just, you know, every game I'm going to give you like 20 kills. That's not who he is as a person. So the problem is that's the piece they miss. If they could transport Spinx back and have this lineup of ENCE, I think it would be the best team in CS. Yeah, we disagree, so come on.
He's thinking, just, so I can take it over if you want.
Go on.
He's thinking through it.
My take is so similar. I have a really I just have another take that I might. Okay, whatever. You go, kassad, because I have a way.
The thing is, like, what I understand what you're saying. Yeah, completely. What's even like bonus to that is the fact that, you know, he joined in February, whatever. They don't have a superstar, and they are still playing so good. Like, they are going head-to-head with teams like G2, with Vitality.
Dude, they even sometimes win some of these big games when, like, one of them has a bad game then. You're like, holy shit, how? Like, they beat Vitality in Cologne when Nertz was doing nothing. You can go watch the game, guys.
That's the... I mean, there is a lot of things. Like, for example, I think the lots of credit for their success goes to their in-game leader/coach combination. I think they developed a lot of like good things around that team, including the system, the structure, the way they do. I spoke after the Gamers 8 final with Snappi, and he told me like, yeah, I mean, we were the better team in like 3 halves, and like it's very difficult to play against a good team like Vitality and always start 0-5. So they basically always have this like room to work with, and you have none. You have no margins for error whatsoever. Like, it's just super difficult. And when you give that much space to the team that's so good like Vitality is right now, it's very difficult, nearly impossible to come back and win. And you know what it takes to turn around those games and win? Like you said, bona fide superstar that's gonna pop up and just deliver you this little bit more impact into your game, so you can turn it around and bring it back. That's what ZywOo does for Vitality. That's what Nico does for his team. That's what Simple does as well. Like, all these like superstar level players, they are delivering that when it needed. The ENCE doesn't have that right now. I don't know if they're ever gonna get that to that point. Nerds is good. He's very good. He's aggressive, but I don't know if that type of player is gonna develop into this, because I have never seen a player that's aggressive as him. Let's take like Yekin, Dark Config, and all these like super aggressive players. They're never those type of players that you just talked about, like a superstar level. They're gonna deliver you impact. They're gonna set you up for the superstar, right? But they're not superstars themselves. Like, they are just, a very good players that are delivering a lot of things, right? You compare the Nerds and Spinx to different players, right? Spinx is more of a Robs type of, just a little bit more aggressive than Robs, but because he has so much space. But if you are super aggressive, you go for those fights and you're gonna end up dying a lot of times. So it's very difficult for them. But right now, yes, if they had a I guess I'm going to say that word again, superstar player in their team, they would probably be number one now, and they had more titles than Dallas.
I only can just spin off of this take because I can't really comment on it, because my hot take itself is that ENCE is the best team in the world.
Oh, there you go.
ENCE is the number one team right now for my money. Because I think about this is starting with like a couple. You need to first accept the concept of like 5-man lineups here, though, first, because or else Vitality would be the number one. But I'm not including the results they had with dupreeh, because with playing with Flames, their results are 4th to 6th at the Blastfall groups. They lost to ENCE at Cologne, and then they beat ENCE at Gamers 8. And then I think of ENCE themselves, and given the fact that they beat Vitality at Cologne and then went to the grand finals there, they went to the grand finals of Gamers 8. They won Dallas. That 5-man lineup to me is the strongest. It's the best 5-man lineup right now in terms of in terms of kind of like ranking, because the way I see it is that the consistency to get top 5. Or, I mean, not top 5. To go for 4 lands in a row and get top 2 is enough for me with that 5-man lineup to consider them the best team, because it's kind of similar in vein to how Heroic was ranked the number 1 team in the world before, because they just kind of kept coming top 4 at every event, and they weren't necessarily even winning the events. It's just that their consistency there was what sent them there. So for me, Vitality have just not proven enough yet, and they've actually lost to ENCE on an arena stage. That's a huge difference here, is that sure, they beat ENCE later, but it was with a much smaller crowd, which is why I have ENCE right now as the number 1 team in the world. It doesn't necessarily mean that if I go into a tournament like ESL Pro League, I would pick them number 1, because again, ESL Pro League isn't a tournament with a huge arena component. But to me, ENCE have proven that they are consistent enough, unlike a team like G2, that they're going to make it to the playoffs. They've shown in arenas that they can actually beat big teams like Vitality. And then it's the combination of all of that and the fact that Vitality just haven't done it in an arena yet with this core or this 5-man lineup.
Okay. Thoughts, kassad?
I'm thinking like, I can't really 100% agree, simply because they have lost all those finals. And that's the same thing with Heroic. We can't put them at number 1 because they keep losing in the big games, on the big stages. They keep disappointing us when it comes to the quarters, semis, finals, whatever. So I can't put them. Also, you need to take, as much as I would like to, disagree on my own opinion, I have to say it. It's just, you have to take into account G2's year. They did win Cologne. They did win Kato. They didn't right now. I mean, they're coming off of the biggest win of the year. I'm not counting the major. It's just, we're not going to get into it. But Cologne was super competitive. G2 won it. I can't really put I can put them up there like a contender for the #1 spot, but they are not cemented by any means there. At least now I see that you're saying like, yeah, I'm not counting the results with the but you have to count them in. Like it's the 4 players that were still there. The coach was there. Like the one player doesn't have, you know, that much of a value to just disregard completely what they did before him, because it happened like a few months back. It happened like 3 years ago. And overall, ENCE is one of the, I wouldn't say the best team, because I wouldn't say any team is the best team, but they are the most exciting team and the best team. Just that's the you know, the key word. They have the best team. Like, you know, they
as
look
a group
like a
of
team.
players. Yeah.
They just need to. I think I was thinking after Dallas, when they actually won the big final, they are gonna, you know, get that, you know, pressure off their shoulders. Like, we won the final. Maybe they get into a role and just kind of win more. But they failed a couple of times. I don't know what's coming for them next, but they are up there definitely. I wouldn't call them the best, because there is vitality still there. I can't, you know, with my clear mind say that ENCE is the best team when vitality is this year is just right there for us to see, and all this success in the past 8 months.
I'll tell you the real problem with this topic is, does best in the world mean the team that will win the next event? Because if it does, like you say, Maui, then they aren't your top team, because they wouldn't be the team that you would pick as the favourite to win the whole event. And the problem with that is this. I'm torn on it, because in general, I do think best is just aggregate against the entire field, or in all the tournaments, basically. So in the same, like you say, in the same way that Heroic got to be #1, that would mean ENCE gets to be #1 now. Like, yeah, you lose all the big finals and the semis. Yeah. But here's the difference, though. If you did put the gun to my head, I mean, I've done this for esports bet, actually. If you asked me before the major who was going to win the major, I wouldn't bet on Heroic, because this is the problem. The one flaw they have, and ENCE clearly has this at the moment, is when they're in the big final, it's not just that they lose. People are missing that. You can make a final and be the underdog every time and lose, and it's actually totally reasonable. Dude, they lose, and they're the favourite each time for my money. I actually think, for real, I think they were like a tiny favourite over G2, because it was a best of 5, and they have that map pool. And I actually thought, not just because they'd beaten Vitality recently, but I actually just thought, if they can both play to the best form we've seen, ENCE will win this final. They'll beat Vitality, and they'll win this game as 8 tournament. But they don't. And the reason they don't, after having seen these 4 finals, is entirely logical, which is, in the big pressure match like this, they don't have the superstar. By the way, people who think that theory, because I used to get a lot of shit for that over the years, of people thinking it's just a spell thing of like the hero myth. No. That is one of the #1 most powerful principles I use in sports and esports, which is that the thing about a superstar, not just a good player, a superstar, is they can win you a game you don't even deserve to win. They can just get a map where you're playing like shit, you're calling like shit, you don't deserve to win it, and they can just basically like break the matrix and just win the game for you. Like, it's one of the reasons why everyone thinks me and Kassad hate Huxley. We don't. He just has one of the craziest get out of jail free cards ever in his fucking arse that he pulls out, and then a guy from Bosnia just does it all on the server for him. And at the end, he gets to go, see, that was me who called that. It's like, bitch, I'll give you Nerds and Sun Pius, and I'll have fucking Monacy and Nico, and then let's see who can fucking call a game, shall we, homie? You do that with, like Snappi is, with the people he's working with. He has 0 superstars. You have, like, arguably 2.5. That's how ridiculous your team is. So there's a reason why, like, you notice how we divide up the credit. It's very different depending on who you have. They don't have that on ENCE, which, by the way, is also another reason why I think we're giving a lot of the credit to the IGLs. The reason I always give mad credit to Cadian in Heroic is because Stown has never made that leap for me. He's come this close over and over again to becoming the super, and he never does it. Like, he isn't the guy in the semi-final I can just go, like, if I was telling a casual fan, this is another one of my lenses I apply. If I was telling a casual fan before the semis of the major, right, you got to tune in because the best team in CSGO is playing now. They're called Heroic. And then they were like, right, who's going to carry the game? I can't tell them, oh, see this young guy, Stown. Mate, just trust me. He's fucking money. He's going to deliver. He's going to... I can't tell you that. Because the joke is even Heroic knows that doesn't happen half the time. In fact, half the time is probably being generous. Loads of the time he doesn't turn up. And as a result, you can tell they know that because their game isn't even based around that. They don't even try in either of these teams, you notice, to give any player ego positions. They don't do. You know those stories? Here's what's very fascinating. This is another thing to apply when you think about players like Huxley. I actually give mad respect to Zonic and Apex. If you ever listen to interviews, they get that their whole mission essentially is get ZywOo and Spinx right. They're not actually there like in ENCE and Heroic, like let's play a team game and real Counter-Strike and let's stick to our playbook, guys. No, they know, like you'll hear Apex do interviews where he says like, I basically had to tell ZywOo after like map 1, like get your ass together, mate, like we're going to be fucking out. You're the only one who can win this. Like they know that they're on the Phil Jackson level. They're man management of the biggest stars in the world. And they get that these guys are like fucking mythical creatures that you can't just do normal CS around. It's just about getting them in the right headspace, give them some opportunity. They're not even trying to do that on teams like ENCE and Heroic, guys. They're just, if anything, they're telling them the opposite. Like, look, don't worry about the fact you're choking. Just play the team game. We can still win. This is doable. That's how you know these teams are on different levels. So in that sense, like, for the talent they have, I think it is absurd what ENCE has accomplished. The problem I have, to bring it all the way back though, Maui, is if you go, you die if you pick the winner of this final wrong. At this point, I'm going against ENCE in those finals. Like, I don't even think G2 is overall as good, but I'll take G2, I'll take Vitality. Fuck it, if they make it to the final, I might even take FaZe, because I do actually think, as a general principle, if we're talking about one match, I do tend, if you notice, to pick the team who has the better star player, because I think the star player can steal the game for you. And at the moment, it feels like ENCE and Heroic, without the star, they just have to, like, earn it old school stuff. They have to just do real CS to win, which, that could be a lot harder. As Huxley's career shows. Whatever. Why does everything have to be a dunk on Huxley? You know what? What's sad about this is, I bet if he even comes on our shows, it'd just be chill as fuck. It's like, half that shit's just manufactured by old pleb haters, isn't it? Like, little bro. It's like, if anything, he shouldn't even be hating on us anyway. He's having the dream and he just gets to be in that bloody team and win everything. Right, let's spin off then, because I've got a good one. It's a really brief one, but I think it's a really good point. As usual, I understand my assignment on this show, so I'll phrase it in the most incendiary way ever. Here's how you know ZywOo stans don't actually think he's the best player. Get ready. Here's how you know they don't think he is. Because have you ever noticed how they never say, but just look at him play, you idiot. Use your eyes. Why isn't that the number one argument, by the way? Instead, what they do, Kassad, is they go away like a fucking accountant in some background. Like, it's got to be here. What about 1977? Oh, in March? And then they're like fucking running numbers analysis. It's like, yes, but if you control for data samples, like, I don't need an Excel spreadsheet. If you ask me why Simple is the GOAT, here's the quickest answer ever. Bro, just watch his best games. And if after that you disagree, then we're just fundamentally not going to agree on this topic. Because the thing with people like Simple is, I can just say that. I think he has the most fucking crazy snapping eye test ever in esports, by the way. Here's what people don't know. This is why I'll never let you tell me ZywOo's better than Simple. Because I'm out there arguing with the fucking super nerds that Simple is better than like Flash and Faker, like the GOATs of all esports, the best to ever play any game. I'm trying to go and argue with some nerd that he's better than like a StarCraft player or to like go full God mode Korean, or like Faker, who, if you don't know, has been at Worlds like fucking 9 times or something insane like that over his life. Like, I'm trying to go to that. I think he's beyond even CS. So y'all are lucky I even come back into the Matrix to have fucking dog shit steak where you can't and argue about how ZywOo can have it. He's pretty good, isn't he? But to bring it all the way back and just make it succinct, you never hear that argument. By the way, it's actually why, to tie it into what Maui said, 'cause I said this to him on Twitter, it's how you know that they don't actually have a counter to that point Maui made about like cultural impact. You know that thing, Kassad, where Maui was like, you know, what cultural impact does ZywOo had? Like, what signature style of play does he have? Everyone goes, you fucking idiot, you don't know what you're talking, and then no one ever says what the signature style is.
Yeah, no.
To this day, they've had weeks now, Kassad. They haven't figured out what his signature style is. Now, what's mad about that is, it's actually a very shrewd point by Maui. The weird thing about ZywOo is, it might sound boring, but he's just really good at everything, but in an actually, like, not particularly distinct way. Like, everything's too smooth and too, like, correct decisions and too just, like, there actually is nothing signature about how he plays. In fact, this will really hurt people's feelings. So if I ask you, gun to your head, you have 1 second, tell me an iconic Simple play. Boom, 1v2 against Fnatic instantly. Right, what's the Simple version, the ZywOo version of that? Nobody can answer it.
Everybody says, they've said it so many times. Come on. The pistol ace he got on Mirage, and I'm like, that's online. That's
against
an
who?
Online highlight.
You mean from 2020 or whatever?
2020 when he had the P250 and machine goes N1, N2, N3, N4, and then like.
Bro, you guys just entered this whole thing. You just lost already. If you actually see, if you're giving an online play, what are you talking about?
Five people said, "Is this signature enough for you?" And it's an online clip. I had to respond to one of them, and I said, "You added me for something that's online. I did it just to one person.
wild.
I could have done it to all of them. Like, it's so funny that that's his signature move. That's something that happened during the pandemic. Okay.
Those people, like the hardcore ZywOo fans, are just like sometimes so delusional. Like they would at the same time say that 2020 ZywOo, they would count that in like as the best performance, blah blah, best team. But at the same time they would disregard, for example, Gambit being the best team because it was online.
Yeah.
Like how dare you? Like to be that fucking hypocrite. Like, you can't say that ZywOo is the best and you count 2020, but you say that online era doesn't matter.
Bro, let me ask you this question, and I know it's a rhetorical question. If Simple had been like his absolute best year was 2020, it was pretty good, but let's say ZywOo had been really bad in 2020. They'd all just be saying it doesn't count online play.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it's just so transparent, you idiots. Like no one buys that you. The idea we've all hated online CS and like think about how much shit everyone's given Xantares his whole career, but we're now going to turn around and pretend we all count online play. Give me a fucking break.
It's so stupid, right? It's just, and even I, like, okay, I am a fan of Nico. I am gonna be advocating for him all the time. That's gonna happen. But I never said that, that Simple is like, below Nico. I never discounted Simple as the GOAT contender in favor of Nico, because I have eyes, I see things, I see the numbers, sometimes, but I see everything that's going on in the past 7-8 years. And, ZywOo fans are like disregarding Simple, they're disregarding Nico, they're just disregarding all the facts and putting the stats from 2020 and 2019 and like all this shit into their arguments. And on top of that, that was that tweet from Maui when that he said a pretty normal thing. ZywOo doesn't have that, kind of the way that he's doing things like Simple, like Nico, like, it's just... And people got like absolutely crazy and nobody said anything to counter it. They were just calling him like, oh, you are this and you are that. Nobody countered it. Yeah. So what the fuck are you doing? Just fucking get your shit together and use your eyes and use your brain, whatever you have in between your ears. So the thing is, like, I do agree, and I think it's a little bit crazy what's going on, but they are, just hardcore fans, I guess. Like Lurpus with LeBron.
The signature style thing, I wanted to bring that up as like one of my points, so I'm glad you already brought it up more or less. Like it doesn't need to be a second point, but just the fact that what I always think of when I watch players is if I...
By the way, just as an aside, just so we can make this clarified, because obviously I know you know this, but like... You actually aren't making that like the defining part of his career, though. Like he is still better than like players who have a signature style but who aren't ZywOo, right?
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Notice what they're doing. This is how you know they're a star and you aren't. Is everything they say just translates to he is God, he is God, he is God, and every single criticism is that person is shit. Whereas what you're actually doing is providing nuanced opinion, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to I just kind of woke up that day and I was like, what? But like the thing is, and I think about this a lot, is like if I take the nameplate away from a player, because in Counter-Strike you can't really tell the difference between a person unless you have trained your eye to understand that individual person's style. So that's why, like, if I watch a Rops demo without his nameplate, I am 99% certain I will tell you that is Rops, not just from position alone, but the way that he clears angles, the way he's so methodical and slow for that matter. Like I can tell it's Rops, and like on top of that, I can tell when it's Nico because it's like the way that he pushes, the way that he likes to one-tap, probably just to be a little flashy sometimes. Like, there's all these little things. I could even tell you if it's a Testis demo. Like, I know what his spray control looks like very well now. Like, there's all these players where it's like, I know without a nameplate that they have a signature kind of way of carrying themselves in the game. And for me, when I was thinking of ZywOo, I was like, it's obvious that there's greatness there, but like if I did take the nameplates away from some of his like great plays, not like you would probably have a little bit of trouble. Be like, was that Cold Zera? Was that a Cold Zera highlight? Was that a Brokey highlight? Is that like, I don't really know always what I'm looking at when I'm watching this guy, and it's just not as definitively him. And he doesn't have that signature like Simple does. You know when you're loading up a Simple POV every time within 3 rounds.
Would you be able, I got a question, would you be able to spot the difference between Robs and Blame F if you remove the player name?
Yeah,
here's what would be fun about that. That would be a really good like segment for pros, because obviously the diss is if you said it was Blame F, it was Rops, you'd be, oh shit, what have I done? Like, because we're supposed to say Blame F's a beta, aren't we? But they are both baiting like a motherfucker. The question is how good a job are they doing, right?
I would say that like the way that Rops' mechanics work around when he's clearing angles is a little bit. It looks so like precise and calculated, whereas Blame F, the way he peaks certain angles feels almost like he'll like strafe into it, not lazier, but just kind of like taking things for granted more often than Rops does.
By the way, as a random aside, if you ever want to see a piece of content that might show why actually Device probably was the most like actually cerebrally intelligent star player ever in Counter-Strike, it's one of those betting company segments where they do like a fun thing where it was like a pro or low type one, like is this guy a pro, is he not? And if you ever watch it, Device is never actually on the pros looking at things like, oh, by the way he moves his mouth. This just shows you how cerebral this guy is. What he would do was at the beginning of the clip, he would just assess the whole game state and look for little like things that between pro and different wouldn't be there. So for example, he would go, this is low, and they'd be like, that's quick, and he'd be like, well, you have to see, like, look, like a second player on the radar, if you look, has like an AWP over there, which a pro team would never do. And the way like the T's ran in, like they didn't flash pop, like, dude, who's even watching that when you watch a highlight clip? Like, that's how you know certain people are just like on a different fucking level, mate. Like, he essentially like Poirot just broke down the scene of the crime and like, oh, this, and then that must imply that you came in from the back door. Like, what? Like, everyone else is just looking like, I guess that's pretty good, so I think he's probably pro. Like, that's what all the other pros were doing, guys. Like, they weren't even attempting that approach.
And that's like that thing comes natural, like, you know, to Device, for example. And
that's what I mean. You can just tell it's how he breaks the game down. Yeah, exactly.
Like breathing to us, right? They see it like before other people see it, and it looks so clear when he says it to you. Mm-hmm. And you see, like, oh yeah, that's what happened, and you never had a clue that is actually what happened.
Oh, of
until
course,
he said it, like, you know.
Right, who's next then? Come on.
I think it's me, and I'm trying to decide which one I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna stick with, you know, Hooksy, Snappi, G2, whatever.
Yeah, why you give up the habit of a lifetime? Go on.
I have. The thing is, like, my take is like, if Snappi joins G2 in this transition to CS2, G2 is gonna have the first era in that game.
Not even just be the best Maui, an era. Like, they'll actually dominate the whole game.
They will dominate the first stage of CS2 for sure. I don't know how long it's going to take, but they will have an era that they can say, like, okay, this is G2-0. Like, Fnatic had it, like SK, Luminosity, whatever, you know, Liquid, not Liquid, Astralis. Well, Liquid to some degree. You know what I'm talking about. The thing is, like, we spoke about this in this show as well, like, a little bit earlier, that what Snappi is doing with the players that he has is just unbelievable, right? That he doesn't have a superstar. His players getting poached. He swapped an op. He had the go and like start from scratch. You know, for example, Hooksy came into this team which was already had a core, and didn't have a core. They started from nothing. They had Hades. They had the Spinx, and they swapped those players. You know, Spinx went to Vitality, and he kept the level high, and not the high. There's the highest, probably the highest. Right now, we spoke about this as well. And he also has a good coach behind him. He has a healthy organization and everything that goes with it. But him going to G2, this is not about, you know, trashing Hooksy or anything. But the thing is, you take Hooksy and you take Snappi, and you compare those two. Like, who has the better calls? Who has done more? Who has more experience? Who is the better individually? As a player, fragging wise, whatever, you know, decision making and everything that's going in, you know, in those like individual terms. And who do you pick? 10 out of 10 times I pick Snappi. And just obviously, and there is also a question of what kind of Counter-Strike he likes to play. We know that Hooksy likes to call from spawn a lot more than he doesn't. Snappi is not like that. Snappi likes instinct, you know, reactive Counter-Strike based on instincts a little bit. So he likes to do those things. And that's something that Nico would love. That's something that Monesi would love. That's something that Hunter loves for 100%. So if he goes there, now he has two paths right now, if I'm Snappi. Stay loyal to ENCE. Be a franchise player, you know, somebody who's going to be remembered by being in ENCE. And that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. There is another route that he can take in going into like a team like G2, maybe even FaZe, but G2, for example, and kind of cementing your legacy towards the end of CSGO and obviously start of CS2 and get more titles because he's lost many finals. So he has a decision to make. But overall, if he goes into G2, they're gonna have an era.
By the way, as an aside as well, I'll give you a little factor to watch when you watch G2 and Huxley play, if you're a fan, to see why I think Huxley's mad overrated. Right? The thing about teams like ENCE and Heroic when they're on top without the superstars is, dude, their map pools become so consistent. You know exactly where they're going to get their win, how good they're going to be on a map, what chance they are. G2, the way you know he's just got the most crazy arsenal of firepower is the amount of times they just fuck around, lose their own map, and then just win the opponent's map pick. Even when the opponent didn't pick a map they're good on. Like, they can just wake up and win maps they clearly do not like and are comfortable on because they have superstars that just carry them over the line. Like, that isn't the IGL, boys. He didn't go back into, like, some fucking back room and come up with, like, some genius, like, flying V, like, if we just do this, it'll work. Like, that's just, like, the player just fragged everyone off the server there. So keep your eyes out for that. That happens way too often for a good team. Go on, Maui. What's your take on this?
First is that to give the one.
Is he is he gassing Snappi too much? Would they have an era?
I think they could. I actually wouldn't even think it's that unlikely if they had it. It's just kind of what does CS2 change for that team. So I would say I would just like take away CS2 or anything like this from this conversation, and I would say if Snappi joined G2 and we were playing CSGO for the next year,
okay,
then there could be an era. Yeah.
Oh, like, regardless of the game, right? Okay.
Yeah. So the only, this is just a very small point. The only thing I will still keep giving Hooksy credit over is I do think that he calls the best T-side Inferno right now. I think that the way that he's broken down that map is just kind of simplified it to a way that's almost stupid, but it's actually very effective, where they just honestly, they take banana so frequently, which is due in part because they have one of the best banana players in the world in Nico.
Yes, he's not calling anything. What do you mean?
Well, he just keeps it simple. He just keeps it really stupid and simple, which is just
exactly
cool. Once
that
you get
makes him fucking crazy good.
Well, it is.
Just put fucking whoever is the best player, Jokic, against some fucking point guard in the paint. And I was like, yeah, he's doing a really good job. Good job, coach. You called that one. Like, what?
Well, they were the first team. They were the first team back like months ago that was just like, you know what, we don't even need to take map control. We just go B. Like, and that's why
cool.
That's why Inferno's gotten really kind of extra boring for a lot of people. I still find that it can be pretty entertaining, but it is for watching teams like G2 on Inferno is really boring nowadays because they just take banana and they just exec all the time. It's kind of lame. But beyond that, I would say that what's funny about this point is that well, one, I obviously agree that Snappy's better than Hooksy, not just for calling, which Snappi is a better caller on. It's just also that Snappy doesn't play Inferno right now with his team. The second thing is that literally what's even funnier, like I find this, like if you actually somehow just made all of Hooksy's calls, but you put Snappy in Hooksy's position, he is actually a significantly better fragger, enough so that they would just win everything. They would, like, Hooksy is so bad individually, and Snappy is so serviceable individually that they, with the exact same strategies, they would just be a 10% better team, just because Snappy's just better.
Let me ask you, Maui, one thing. You put Hooksy in ENCE. How many playoffs do they make?
Yeah, I know. No, yeah, wouldn't be a.
How many bananas and fucking Infernos and fucking B takes they actually make it successful because they will send whatever who.
I would say
Nika
they would make
in banana instead of Nico.
They would get into like 30% as many playoffs as ENCE are right now. Yeah, no, I think
if that.
I think, yeah. I mean, well, I am agreeing
and
that
put
Snappy's
Snappi
much better.
Put Snappi in Hooksy. How many titles does G2 have?
That's the fun question, right?
That's a valid question, right? The thing is, like, all these things, like glorifying. Okay, Cologne was a great win. Katowice was a great win, and they're all saying, "Oh, this is the greatest." Whatever. Ask Nico if he would trade Cologne victory for major victory. Would he take that?
He would trade both Kato and Cologne for one major.
I think he still would. He would.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would, but here's the problem with that topic is it's an unfair comparison because they always do it when you've never won one. The real question that would be interesting is if you had two majors, but no Cologne and Katowice, would you trade one major to have one major and one Katowice and Cologne? That's the real question. You know what I mean?
Not.
I'd love to know if there's anyone who'd answer that one.
Absolutely not. Why would you trade like Kato and Cologne for being able to call yourself a 2-time major champion.
Because it depends what the major is, mate. Like if I'm Device, he never won Cologne ever. I'd rather give up the dog shit face it major London and have like a Cologne title. You know what I mean? Here's another thing, mate. All majors aren't created equal. I give a fuck less about Devil Walk dropping his pants in some dream arena that was played in 3 total days for the entire tournament, and then you basically just played right after the other semi-final took place, and you nicked it because they just came out of an epic crawling. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't count in the same way as like a modern day major. Like, people, we can't conflate them all. You can't conflate them all.
That is a matter of like getting recognized into the game with a little pin, with a little thing, with a little legacy that you don't get in Cologne. You know, it's just something that stays for you. But it's a valid point. I don't think we can answer it correctly because, like you said, the very first major, the Dreamhack, whatever it was,
yeah,
and you compare it to today's Cologne, it's just a fucking day and night. Like, and
sure,
but take it in the last 4 or 5 years, right? And let's actually go from 2016. And what, MLGs and all these things. Like, how many bad majors did we have, like, in terms of, like, very shit ones? We had Face It one, which was, like, what, 2018, and we had the Paris one, right? Which was, you know, bad because the bracket was just terrible. And, you know, a lot of different factors kind of contributed to the fact that, like, Swiss was terrible for the majors. And it's not just I'm not, like, hating on Face It or whoever organized the last one. It was Blast. It's not them. It's just they were forced to play this with this system, and it's just terrible, right? It kind of created a very big gap and very big mistakes when it comes to seeding and matchup, and kind of created a shit bracket and ruined the major by extension. So overall, I don't know. Just like I said, just swap the players, swap them, and see who does better. I think that you cannot compare, not just Snappi with Hooksy. I don't think there is an IGL that can compare with Snappi right now at this moment. I don't think there is one.
But this way, if we basically make the topic, the real way it's phrased is this. Everyone, I think, who's an expert looks at this G2 roster minus the IGL and it's like, bro, if I had this team of players, I should literally, there's no limit to what I could accomplish. I should be able to win everything. Every tournament, every title. I should be the most dominant team in the era. Remember, you know that saying, I love it from sports, of pick your poison, when a team has multiple star players and they play a different style. And so if you avoid one, you just run into the other one. Like if everyone remembers old mouse spots when fucking Kassad was coaching them back in the day, that was real. Like, cause Nico was so much better than his teammates. If you're on T side and you know what site Nico's playing, you just go to the other bomb site. You don't waste your time rushing in on him where he might just ace you with a fucking deagle and sit you down. You just go to, like, whatever, I don't know, fucking Spiddy's site over here or something like that, you know. You can't do that against this G2 team. It's the definition of pick your poison. If you try to shut Nico down, Monacy's going to get you. That's going on, by the way. You better hope JKS just doesn't pop off on a CT. You know what I mean? Like, the amount, it's actually an embarrassment of how many fucking wealth that this guy has, the weapons this guy has. So if Snappi had this team, right, first of all, anyone who's going to do that whole thing, which I think is what they actually think about Hooksy, which is, I think people low-key, but they won't admit it because they're just trying to battle Kassad and Richard Lewis. I think they know Hooksy doesn't really do anything, but that's why maybe Nico isn't that bothered, because essentially then Nico and Hunter get to do their game and do what they want. And they're just sort of like, look, Hooksy, just don't fuck it up, basically, mate, and we'll just do the rest. Like, I actually think that's why it's Snappi specifically, not just, I'm not making it like Carrigan should join. I think Carrigan's got his own ego and his own big calls. Here's why Snappi would be mega. Because Snappi would fucking love Nico. Because he'd go, you know what, mate? I'm not here to tell you what to do. You're going to get your spots. I'm going to give you all the shit you need. You're going to carry the game. Me and you are going to have a great time. Maybe someone like Monacy who's a bit younger. Hey, I might work with you a little bit, man. We might channel your setups and figure out what you do in CT. So, by the way, another player Snappi's going to fucking love is JKS. You don't have to tell that boy anything on CT side. You just put him on his site. He's going to do his job. He's going to play the site on his own when that's a dream if you're an IGL. I don't even have to have him as a star player. He's just in my back pocket, mate. You're never going to beat me if I have these players. And then, I didn't even mention Hunter yet. Oh, by the way, Snappi, remember he did this with Glaive. I bet he'd be totally fine with Hunter being the secondary caller. He'd be totally up for that. Like, I called the initial stuff when we did what we were doing and was getting set up. But if you every now and then have a read on the game, just let me know, mate. I bet he wants that from his players. I'll guarantee it. So I look at the pieces. Which one of these pieces is going to have problems with? And then I'll just throw this in at the end. One of the things I've always thought was whack about the Hooksy era of G2 is it's only when they literally 2-0 everyone that the map pool looks insane. Like I said earlier, otherwise, like, they'll have maps that are like a 40% win rate on, but they just win because Nico popped off. Snappi has already gotten these fucking ENCE lineups again and again to 5 solid maps, bordering on the 6th. If you give him a team like this, mate, he'll just have the whole map pool, I'm telling you right now. He'll have this one perma and that's it. That's it.
I mean, there are things like, sometimes I do wish I'm back in competitive mode so I can play against this lineup of G2 and show them.
Try and expose them.
Yeah, and show people how, you can't take banana all the time.
Yes.
How you can win Inferno, how cannot win Inferno all the time. But, it's just sometimes I get that feeling, but, it quickly suppressed by, memories of stress in that job. So it's an interesting thing. But overall, like I said, it's just if you swap them, it just makes no difference. It's like also Snappi right now is the best IGL we have. I don't think there is any other that we can compare him to at this point. I'm not talking about all-time IGLs. It's just right now in this space of Counter-Strike. There is
and by the way, on that tip as well, the angle of his fragging as well. This man is 33 years old, and that isn't even a normal 33. He was playing pro at the end of 1.6 in fucking 2000s, end of 2000s, early to the wear and tear on this guy is bonkers. To be that good still at fragging is actually exceptional. It deserves its own mark of credit. And I'd get it if he was good at fragging because he's just on a shit team and he's playing in the groups. He's going to the fucking finals. He is going to the biggest matches in the world against stud motherfuckers like Monacy and fucking Flames and all these young talents. And he's just going, all right, here I go, 33-year-old Danish boomer from 1.6. Oh, what? I am fragging you. This guy's too good, mate. He's too good. He's too good.
Yeah, I want to come back to your point, Nico and Mausports. And that's absolutely 100% true. We explored that in later teams when he played in FaZe. With the way we beat, you can't go against players like ZywOo, like Nico, they're going to get those numbers. They're going to make, what their moves are, but their moves are always working for them because they're so good individually. The things that we did, like say Mirage, we know that Nico is playing connector. We know that he's an aggressive connector. We know whatever we do on middle, he's going to get the kill most of the times. If the flashes, we push him off, he's going to re-push, he's going to get the kill, he's going to escape. What we did is we pressure middle, and just go on the weaker player. On the other side, we force him to do his moves. He thinks that he's doing a move against a middle take because, that's how it looks like. He cannot see other people's screens. He thinks that that's it, but we attack the weaker player, and that's how we get them to have bad economy. That's how we get them to force buy, and that's how we, kind of impose our game onto them, and that's how we beat those teams that have superstars. That's how you do it. If you go against the superstar head-to-head, you're going to lose every time because your players are weaker than that player. And they're going to lose 8 out of 10 battles, which means they're going to lose 8 out of 10 rounds, which means that you're going to lose all the maps and matches. So you need to figure out how to beat them. Teams are not really doing that right now, but it's a different topic.
Right, here we go. Here's my big hot take for the episode. What's great is it's going to sound initially like you should all be against me, so I'm interested to see what your take will be, because it sounds like an old boomer take from me, and you guys actually work in this part of the industry still, so it sounds like I'm dissing you, but you'll see when I get to it. It's obviously not. Right, basically, the one-sentence version goes, the golden era of broadcast talent in CSGO has been and gone and is not coming back ever again. And why I say that is not on the basis of actual talent, to be good on camera or having just takes. No, the big problem is this: it's attitude and delivery. In the modern day, I think just like everyone else in the industry and media online, everyone has gotten swept up into these algorithms and the need to be liked and accepted, and it is fucking warping all these broadcasts. One of the things that people don't get is, I've always said this, when people watch me on a desk, they're there to watch me and what I think. That they're there to go, right, I'm tuning in, what does Thorin think about this? In the modern day, I get the vibe that people think the way you successfully execute a segment is you just reflect back the uninformed opinion of the fan to the fan, and then he goes he is spitting facts. And then he thinks because you agreed with him that makes you right. So it's like some shitty popularity contest. That's so weird to me. Like, whenever I tune into that, or if I'm on it myself, I want to hear, like, someone's unique take. Like, I want to see, like, look, I know roughly from the personality, like, what angle they're going to go with, maybe, but I always want to see what little flourish are they going to put on it, or how they're going to hit this angle, or how are they going to disagree with the other guy. This whole thing of, like, the idea that we're all just going to appear and then say things that we all agree with, and everyone's fairly milquetoast, and no one's really being edgy at all, like, that isn't CS to me. It might be what people think like sports broadcast. I don't think that's CS though. To me, the best thing about CS was how out there the perspectives were and how totally contrasting the personalities were. Like, if people don't know, back in the day, dude, I would be like arguing with like Semler or something. He'd be telling me some outrageous opinion like Zipnix is the best on Astralis or something. And I'd be like, the fuck are you talking about? And we'd just be having battles back and forth. Like, that part feels like it's gone. And as I say, I don't blame specific people. There are actually some people doing the job now who are arguably better than that era. But they're like, the attitude and the vibe, that is, it's evaporated completely. It doesn't exist in CSGO as far as I can tell.
You notice, Maui, how he didn't say, like he said some people are doing, he didn't say our names. Oh, nice.
Okay.
Cool. You don't think I noticed that?
Okay.
But the thing is definitely, it's a different era right now. Everybody's trying to be politically correct. Everybody's trying to be super careful what they say so they don't get on the bad side of the fence, which by extension in their minds means that you don't get to be on more events. So you try
exactly.
to be like super nice and everybody agrees, holds hands, and everybody.
By the way, what you just said there is not a minor point, you know. In the modern day, I get the sense that people's perspective is they think if they're unpopular on like Twitter that they won't get hired to the gig. Whereas the joke is, I used to think the opposite. Like I used to think I'm box office mate. If they don't like me, if anything, I've got to be there. Like how can you not hire me? Like, but that's a different mentality. I had a different perspective on this game.
I have a different perspective as well, and I spoke with ESL about it multiple times, and they love it. I mean, in the sense that you have to have the boundaries, right? When it comes to that, obviously, you know, you have to kind of navigate a little bit. But you know, I told them I'm not gonna be sitting there and pretending like everything is like super good and everybody is great and all these players are not, you know, to be criticized, even though they make tens of thousands of dollars, and some of them are doing absolutely nothing for it. And we're just gonna pretend that doesn't happen. We're gonna ride the unicorns on the rainbow, and just, you know, it's not going to happen. If if anything, I like when somebody is on the desk who doesn't agree with me. Like, I'm gonna say my take, and then if you don't agree, you just say it. Like, listen, I think you're wrong, and this is why. And and then I tell you, like, come on, man, it's not true because of this and this and that, right? And that's what people like to see. You know, the normal. You know the shows like, you know, Charles Barkley and Shaq and, you know, that the NBA whatever thing, and you have in football you have Roy Keane and, you know, Jamie Carragher in the show, and then you have Kate Abdo with Thierry Henry and me, Michael Richard. It's fun.
It's awesome.
I like to see that. That's what I tune in. But when you say that these bland, vanilla kind of exchanges where they don't lead to anything, it's just boring to watch. And I think people are nobody talks about it. You know, all you can see on Reddit threads, on Twitter is like clips of frags or anything. Nobody's talking about the exchanges on the desk, and like there is no threads on Reddit.
Reddit banned that. Reddit banned people from doing that. You can't post clips from the desk.
Didn't we end up like on top of Reddit like in Cologne?
Yeah.
For like 3 days.
Well, here's the problem, Kassad. I don't want to have to reveal this to you because it might blow your mind. But when it's someone they really hate, so it's you now, it used to be me, it'll be Maui next week. When they really hate you, they break all the rules, mate. Like, there was once a thread on the CSGO subreddit. It was allowed to stay up for like a week. It was one of the biggest threads ever. And it was just called, like, should we have a conversation about Thorin's social media? And on a CSGO Reddit, they just all broke down, like, my Twitter. Like, it's like, what? Like, remember, dude, in the modern day, this doesn't happen now, but this used to happen. Back in the day on the CSGO subreddit, if you just posted like a Forest 1.6 movie, they'd go, not relevant to CSGO, and remove it from like the thread. So basically, the problem is if they hate you, they'll let you get away with anything, mate. Like,
they do it on HLTV also.
Like they say no witch hunting, but there was that one thread that's like the most popular one in the history of the subreddit of like simple flamed meat or whatever. Like that's like the greatest thread ever, like for upvotes or something, you know.
I saw Maui and me and you and Richard, we're catching strays on some fucking topics that we are no longer a part of at all.
Yeah, of course.
you just can win with these people a bunch of times. But anyway, go Maui.
Go on,
sorry.
Maui.
I mean, they even do it on HLTV also, whether they say so or not. They like leave up these hate threads on me all the time, and then I actually saw a Maui appreciation thread. It got 404'd within like a few.
All right. Okay.
I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these mods, dude? Like, they actually have these agendas that they push.
They do.
So obviously, like,
Yeah.
if you actually do cache searches on Google for like my name on HLTV, it's like all these hate threads stay up about me, and literally there's an appreciation thread about me that if you look at the cache stuff, it's like positive 404'd. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like,
But you know
I
why?
don't know.
You know why though, right? You know that they want the comments, they want the exchanges, they want the interaction on site. So you're gonna get less interaction if somebody's saying you're nice, but there is somebody's like spitting shit about you and hate. People are gonna add on to it, and there's gonna be more replays, more fucking topics, more words being written on the site and everything. So it makes sense, right? It makes sense. It's shitty, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's strange. To get back to the original point about the golden era of broadcasts, I'd say like two things have really changed there. I think one is pretty, like, you guys have already addressed it. The first part about being like generally being vanilla and well received gets you hired for every event. And the second thing is that actually now the way that production works is actually really not conducive to actually putting forward an interesting and personality driven product, because it's just a slew of graphics with just like, and it's just like really shitty graphics, by the way. Like a lot of them are just like kills, the total kills that this player has in the tournament. It's like, who the hell cares? Like, it doesn't even say kills per round. Like it's just like, I mean, there's just all these like random stats things that just pop up because I'd say that like in a lot of productions, it's almost like for some reason they've gotten like scared or shy to the idea of putting any of us and our faces on the broadcast for more than a couple minutes straight, because they think we'll probably just like start spinning our wheels, when in fact that's actually usually when all of us do our best work, when we finally have.
Shall I tell you the sad thing, Maui? This is the real problem with this, is it's not that they've like consciously changed and made a different policy. You have to realize no one ever actually planned for all the shit me and Richard did. What happened, for real, was those were events that, by the nature of how bad the tech and internet problems were, just by default used to have a lot of room for this sort of behavior. And by the way, even though I say it now like they get it, people like ESL had to be talked around to the idea I'm box office. Now, when they did, they then realized, like, oh, you're right, actually, if you look, like, it does cause more. But initially, they were off-put by some of that stuff too. They also probably would have stupidly thought, like, you shouldn't have drama with, like, players and talent or something silly like that, or maybe you shouldn't be on Twitter too much at the event. So, unfortunately, like, some of the good parts probably were accidental in a way, you know what I mean? And I'm sure, like, some of the production things, like sadly, I know that from the production side, the reason why they do what you're talking about is because they just they really want the security of thinking they know what's coming next on screen. Yeah. But the problem with that is, like you're saying, the best discussion comes when we have no idea what's coming, or you're going to bounce off what he says, right? But the guy in the truck doesn't know what to do with that, unfortunately.
I mean, now it's a little bit different. I feel like Cologne was a little bit different. They gave me a little bit more room to work with. I think we got some good segments. You're a part of one, Maui, when we did with Sam.
The ENCE
I think it was the ENCE one. It was pretty fun. I think that's the way to go. And when it comes to the graphics, I do what I do because I work mostly with ESL, right? I don't work with Blast or any other this, let's say PGL or whatever. I don't know how they work with the graphics, but ESL never really denied me any graphics, and they always. I mean, you know how it works. When you ask for something, you usually get it. Like the execution part is sometimes a little bit, messed up. But I never got a no on the graphics when I asked for something.
I frankly don't ask for graphics because I never want graphics.
No, I never do as well, man.
I actually don't want graphics, but usually a lot of other people want like 5 graphics on the thing. So like
the sad thing is, to me, they've just got it the wrong way around, because they do say that. Like they obviously say ask for things if you want. It's the other way around. I want to just talk about what I'm going to talk about, and then I want you to be a really brilliant producer who freestyles, and if you can, use some of the assets you have to sort of match what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not claiming that's easy, but that is the way I would rather work.
The flow should definitely be like that, but also if you're going to tell the producer, like, listen, I'm going to talk about this guy, and while I'm talking about him, I want you to play this. I want you to show this. Like, it doesn't matter if it's the KD, if it's the kills, if it's the highlights from yesterday's game, something, or a clip from around, whatever it is, it should be I'm talking and you listen And when I say the thing that I need to say, you play the graphic, right? It's not supposed to be the other way around. So that's the thing that we had, like, you know, talks about, and I think it's getting better right now. But also, it's back to your point. There is not, and I think the only thing that you're wrong about that thing is you said it's never coming back. I do think it's coming back. I do think it's coming back, because while I'm on the desks, I'm never gonna be bland. I'm never gonna be, you know, just agreeing with it. So I'm gonna try my best to bring it back as much as I can. So, and I think it's going to be, it's not going to be easy, but it's manageable.
It's not gonna happen as long as people keep trying to be everybody's favorite all at the same time, in lieu of actually developing a more pointed personality, which can drive discussions better, because you need to have different edges.
Yeah, and get ready for people to hate you. So that's fine, if you want to be like that. But, you know.
Do we have like a last take? Is there one more take, maybe?
I'm good. I mean, I do have one. It's not very spicy, because yours was like pretty good for the end. But I can try if you want. And the thing is, like, it's about C9. And I don't think they're gonna win any CS:GO events. They're not gonna win any CS:GO events, and they're gonna be not a single event.
What's the problem then? What's the big flaw we're missing then? Come on.
The big flaw is, I think, the coach. I honestly think it's the coach. Yes, we had our blame on Fanny and everything. I think they didn't change their style whatsoever. When I look at their games, they obviously have the most firepower of all teams right now. Not even close. Like, you look at G2, and that's crazy how much firepower they have. And C9 is even stronger. And C9 wasn't even a contender in the events they played. Yes, it's a new team. Yes, Exile wasn't for the group stage. Whatever, I don't care. But the thing is, like, what I saw in terms of, like, play style, in terms of game itself, it's not much different than what it was before. And for me, I do think sometimes it might be with the approach of the coach, because we know that Groove is the coach that's not gonna give out the keys to the players. He is gonna be, you know, implementing his thing, and sometimes it's gonna be good, sometimes it's gonna be bad. Right now, I don't think it's so good. It was good before with Gambit youngsters and everything. Right now, it's super slow, and it's not really adaptive to the meta right now. And I don't think he's using the players the best they can be used right now. Obviously, people are gonna be upset about this. Say it's super early. But there are other teams that super early got to a better position than C9 is right now. And I'm not saying they're not going to be good. I'm just saying they're not going to be good in one period of time, which is what, next 6 months or 8 months or whatever.
All I'll say is, like, even though I don't know if I agree, because I have to say the problem with this team always for me is everyone can see the firepower is exciting, but it was always like, how will they figure out the IGL angle and how will they get the team function? So I'll say it's implausible they can win no tournaments. That could certainly happen. I would just throw this in there and say the key thing I do really hope with this Cloud9 team is that you don't do what has been done with some other very good teams like this in the past, which is if it doesn't work, do not blow the team up. Just make one player change and bring in a real IGL. That's all you do. Because if you do that, then everything's great. Like, if you do that approach, one day it is inevitable it'll be an amazing team. So I hope that it isn't just like this lineup or bust and then we're going to tear it in half. Like, if it doesn't work with electronic IGLing, then let's just, in 5 months, swallow our pride and just bring in a real IGL.
Can I ask you one question before Maui goes? Like, if it doesn't work out, let's say that happens, who do you swap? Who do you remove?
I mean, it's easy for me, mate, because I'm actually very not sentimental when it comes to the game itself. Like, I would just boot Hobbit tomorrow, mate.
I would get rid of
give
Hobbit
a flying
too,
fuck.
Pretty easily.
Listen, he seems like a really cool gambler. He was great in 2017. It isn't 2017 anymore, and I'm not having tea with him. I'm trying to win Counter-Strike. I'll just boot him tomorrow, because the problem with this is, we talked about in the past episode, if you could actually unleash Axile and Electronic as like the players they would be, mate, what they would do to the T side of this game. But if Electronic's the IGL, you almost inevitably cannot be in those positions, you know.
You don't even mention Shiro as well.
I mean, I just take for granted he's going to pop off, you know what I mean? So I think if you had those players and you could really add like an IGL, and it doesn't, by the way, it might not even have to be a good one. Might not, like, everyone's going to go Jerry because everyone just said that for 1 million years. Maybe even some fuck like Boomich, I don't know. Anyone. I mean, as far as I know, he doesn't even IGL now, by the way. But essentially, anyone who's a true IGL, I feel like there's another team where if I look at those 4 players, that's like you say about the G2. It's like G2 again. It's like if I'm a Russian speaking IGL, could I ask for a better 4 players? Like, essentially, who turns that gig down? Like, even if that's a poison chalice, it's like by the time you say poisoned, I'm always... You what? Sorry, I've almost finished it. What did he say? Like, who gives a shit, mate? You take that one. You live and you die on that one, you know.
My thing with this is that, I mean, when they played at Gamers 8, it was their CT side that was really bad, though. And, like, their individuals were really bad on CT side. Like, Hobbit, Electronic, and Axile actually all had sub 1.0 KDs on CT side. Like, so I think the calling actually was fine at Gamers 8. In fact, their T side round win percentage is better significantly than their CT side. So the calling's fine to me. It's actually
so
just
slow.
Do you think they're going to win in the events?
I made it a hot take that I think they're going to win an event.
Oh, was that like on the last episode? Was that a hot take?
Yeah, on the last
right,
episode.
Okay,
yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough.
Yeah, their T side was the 4th best at Gamers 8, and they still lost pretty early. So I think their T side is already better. But like, this is why I was actually so critical for so long and so quickly about the Nafany stuff, is that I think Axile's peak might be over. I actually think I don't know if he's going to get it back. Like, he's been multiple events now where he's just not that good. And that's on an individual level. He's individually not killing people like he used to. And that's very worrying to me. So
but
I
you
think
said
that
they're going to win events, and then you said that Exile's peak is gone. It doesn't really go together, right?
Are they still going to win an event even if his peak's gone?
Well, I think I thought that they could, but now that I've seen, that was before watching what happened at Cologne and Gamers 8, that I thought they could win an event. But now that it's
are you swapping to Kassad's position? Are they not going to win an event then?
It's just that
because it's pretty binary. You have made your hot take is they win an event, and his is that they don't. So you on his side now?
Yeah. No, I think that Axile can bring it back, but I'm just saying. But this is why even before I was calling for Nafany's head over a year ago, I was like, these peaks don't last for people not named Nico. Like, this is the trajectory of riflers. Like, they are good for like 2-3 years a lot of the time, and that's it. Like, I mean, you think of like who was a good rifler 4 years ago. Not many of those guys are like that good anymore, other than Nico. So
I'm with you on that one. If you make a top 10 of all time riflers list, most of them just have like 1 year where they're the best. That's it. 1-2 years max. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm just worried about. I mean, it's possible it's over for Axile. Like, honestly,
maybe you should have made that hot take.
That should be the hot take. Obviously, it's possible it's over for Axile.
It's possible. It's possible. I'm not saying it is. Like, but like, I mean, look at. Okay, I'm actually even looking at the 2019 list right now. Like, some of these riflers, like Elige, Dupree, like these are top 10 riflers, by the way, at this time. Elige and Dupree, they're not even close to that anymore. Yuri, Brolin, Crims, like all Breeze. Like, how many names did I just say? These are all riflers that are just complete, like, not even relevant in the top 20 discussions. There's a handful that are still
not
there.
Not even top 50.
Yeah, you wouldn't even say that any of those guys are top 50 really anymore. Yeah. So,
well, it's about the other circumstances too, like the ores, the teams, the whatever, right? It's not.
Sure. But I'm just saying that people
C9 is super healthy organization. Like, they gave them everything, and they earned everything they're getting right now. So. And then you take Breeze, for example. He was in EG, and it's like...
Oh, by the way, I'll just tag, and we'll make it to the end. The last thing I'll say on this topic, like I said about how I hope, even if this 5-man lineup doesn't work, you essentially just gradually tweak until you see the full potential of the lineup. The other reason why I feel like it is inevitable one day this C9 team will be the best in Counter-Strike is because, mate, if you can fuck up that talent pipeline to Russia, you deserve to fucking lose in Counter-Strike. Like... Forget these players even. You could bring in player after... If you run the game properly and you're Jack from Cloud9, mate, the next 10 years of Counter-Strike could be yours if you do this right. Absolutely. Like, other teams do not want those players. They are politically radioactive, and you have the talent pipeline to bring them, and you already have the best players from their country who they want to play for with way more money than the Russian orgs. Like, if you do this right, the game is on lock for you.
Well, I don't know if they have more money than the Russian orgs, but... You know that money is like always there in this like gambling whatever world is, but the thing is like they have enough money to support what they want to support. So overall they have I think if you are C9 you're in a good spot, and like you said, if you fuck this up, then you deserve to lose.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just it's on them. They have everything they need right now, and also for the ZywOo fans, I mean, this is your goat now, right here. This is your goat. I'm gonna put this right here behind me.
By the way, as an aside, I noticed, by the way, we'll end on this. I noticed you have also learned what I learned, which is in esports, right? Just like I do with the big industry things. Obviously, it's really frustrating for people like me and Richard Lewis that the industry's full of scumbags and liars and corrupt folks. So what you have to do eventually is, because that's your everyday reality, to survive, you have to just make it funny and make it like, we'll make some stupid personality around Nicola Nyholm or, you know, some shady shit over here that Honda did. Because it's the only way you survive. So in the same way, if you notice, the response to all you stupid ass stanzas, we just laugh in your face and think you're actually the stupidest idiots of all time. Like, you're basically just like the clown slapstick guy tripping over and getting a cream pie in his face to us. You're not living rent free like you imagine in our minds. You're just a fucking clown to us. We just laugh at you. We actually think it's hilarious, by the way, that you're so dumb you would take like a weaker performance from your favourite player and pretend it was his best. Like I said on a past episode, I was smart enough when Device choked to just go, yeah, he shit the bed, didn't he, Yanko? I didn't go, actually, I'm going to die on this hill. I thought that was the best open performance ever in a major final. Like, because then I'd be the moron, wouldn't I? He's already bloody lost the game for me. I may as well take my win on the analysis side, for fuck's sake. Y'all are out there like, no, I think no one played better than ZywOo with Blast, Paris. It's like, all right, mate. All right, whatever you say. So we'll leave it at that.